Hey there everybody, before we get started I just want to do a quick unboxing of my newest book, this years in the making creation. I am so happy to be able to share this moment with you as I open up my box of complimentary copies and have a look at it for the very first time. Oh, it's got paper over it. We gotta rip the paper off. This was unscripted, folks. There it is. Nice. There it is, my friends. My newest book, entitled simply Chibi. It is indeed my book that focuses 100% on chibi illustrations. And guess what? They are doing a giveaway. 10 copies my publisher is giving away to those of you who just go to tinyurl.com/chibibook and enter your email address. It couldn't be easier. 10 different people can win. Best of luck to all of you who go in there. I think until March 14th, 2018. That is the cutoff. So best of luck to all of you. And next week I'll definitely be showing the interior of this book, giving you a full tour. But for now, let's go ahead and get on with the video. Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be learning how to draw Yato from Noragami, the popular manga and anime series. Before we get started, I do have to let you know about my live stream sessions that I'm going to be doing next week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. That's March 6th, 7th, and 8th. If you are curious about seeing me do digital drawing live, over the internet, look in the description of this video. I will have all the information related to that, and hopefully be able to do a little reminder video when we get closer to Tuesday and the launch of those live streams. People like to know the size that I'm working at, so I've put this box here. It's 3 inches on all sides. That works out to around 7.5 centimeters, and then I've just sort of put lines right across the middle. So many prefatory statements this time. Let's go ahead and start the drawing with a few basic guidelines. So here we have the basic head shape. You can see it starts the chin, the tip of the chin right here, dead center at the bottom of the box. The top of the head does not quite reach to that top line. That's going to be for the hair later on. But you want to pay attention to maybe where this line crosses in relation to the side of the box. That'll help you to get the proper width of the head shape. Don't worry too much though about this top part here, because that's all going to get erased later on as we draw the hair. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and put in a few basic guidelines for the hair. So here you see the outer contour of the hair. Kind of try to keep a uniform space there with the top line touching the top of the box, and then just sort of hugging? Not quite hugging, but following along the contour of the scalp that we drew earlier. Now these lines here are just basic guidelines for getting his hairstyle in place, and I probably won't get into the details of the hair until later on, but you can see it looks kind of like a letter M almost, disconnected in the middle. And don't worry too much about the precision of that. We can adjust that later on. Now I think it's time to get into drawing the eyes. Now with the eyes, we'll definitely be getting into more details later on, but I want to do that in real time. For now, we've just got the basics, and notice that there's a certain distance there between that center line and where both of the eyes are, really shifting the facial features down low on the face, which gives a kind of a youthful look. And of course, it can always be a challenge to get the eyes placed, you know, in a similar location in relation to the sides of the head. So just do your best in that regard. And, you know, having this box in place really can help in a lot of ways in terms of doing these various measurements to make sure you've got those lined up properly. Let's go ahead and draw the nose and the mouth before moving on to the neck and shoulders. All right, so having this central line in place is super helpful for placing the nose and the mouth, making sure that they are centered right in the middle of the face. But you also want to pay some attention to the distance between the mouth and the chin, which in this case is a little bit larger than the distance between the line of the mouth and the nose. Let's refocus the camera now so that we can draw the neck and shoulders. All right, well, you can see that having this box in place also can help you for getting the equal distance of the neck. I'd say this neck is relatively wide compared to some other manga characters. And then these outer lines of the box can help you know where to stop in terms of making the shoulders. The width of the shoulders, it can be a tricky thing, as well as this angle of the shoulders. I would say slightly more horizontal than vertical in terms of the diagonal tilt to them. But now we can finally knock it off with all the time-lapse. Sorry, old man time-lapse. We need to ask you to leave the room so that I can zoom in, and we're going to start working on drawing the details of the face and the hair, all in real time. All right, so we've definitely got a ways to go in terms of making this look more like the real Yato from Noragami. I should point out the reason I chose to do this character is because my daughter is a big fan of the anime series, and I said, hey, how about if I do a video on how to draw Yato? And she said, yes, please do that. That would be awesome. So that is how we came to this place where I'm drawing Yato. You can see me adding the sort of side and lower edge of his eyelids. And because the hair is sort of blocking out part of the eye, we're not going to see the whole, we're not going to see all the way to the corner of it. But always a challenge to get the eyes to match one another. I did a video like this. Maybe I'll link to that. My video on how to draw the other eye. That pesky task. But here maybe aided by having that line down the middle and having paid so much attention to lining things up earlier on, hopefully not as hard to do as just winging it. I'm going to thicken up this upper line. We don't want him to look like he's wearing eyeliner. Maybe he is wearing eyeliner, I don't know. But we want to just thicken it up a little bit so that the upper eyelid is, or eyelash line is a touch darker than the lower eyelash line, which is what I've observed in most of the illustrations of the character. Now I'm going to add one very thin line here for the fold of the upper eyelid. Sometimes it sort of forks into two lines. And so I'm going to try to go for that extra detail here. Again, also trying to have these two replicate each other or kind of mirror one another. And now it is time to add the eyebrows. I'm going to give him what would normally be sort of an angry-looking eyebrow in terms of them being at a diagonal tilt toward the bridge of the nose. But I think in this case it just looks a little more like determination rather than true anger. You tell me. Is this looking like an angry Yato or just a determined Yato? But don't make the eyebrows too thick compared to various characters. I think these ones are really on the thin side in terms of the drawing choice there. And that, believe it or not, is kind of it. Now, in some illustrations I saw a line for the bridge of the nose coming down, just one over on the side. So that's certainly something you can add if you want to. Oh, I'm forgetting something crucial, and that is the pupils. And Yato has these little dots for pupils. Reminds me a little bit of like Edward Elric from Full Metal Alchemist. The clarity of these eyes, his eyes being, Yato's eyes are kind of a pale blue, but super pale, which gives him this kind of intense look, I think. And that might be it for that. We can maybe move on to drawing the hair. I think before I do that, though, I'm going to shift focus so that we can draw the hair all at once. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is erase the top of the head here, which may anger people. Why did you make us draw that line only to have us erase it later on? Well, it does help with getting the proportions of the head and the hair, getting that relationship right. In any case, now we can go on to adding details. What I'm going to do first is take this sort of center tuft of hair. Tuft, is that the right word? Probably not. Strand, bundle of hair. I am going to make the line extend further up across the head on both sides. Mainly on this left side, though. And then I'm going to take the bottom part and split it into maybe 3 sub-strands. Now, I saw, as I studied different photos, that sometimes you'd see this hair curving in the opposite direction, and I got a little bit paranoid about, am I going to get it wrong? And so I just looked, I went on Amazon and looked at one of the official published manga covers and thought, well, I can rely on that not being a flipped image. That's the trick when you're looking at reference photos on the internet. Sometimes they're flipped around and you don't know, and you can maybe get the hair in the mirror image of what it ought to be. You can see me doing the same thing as I did here over here on the left, and will eventually be doing on the right, sort of taking these big chunky areas and dividing them into more delicate strands. I think I'm going to add like maybe one stray hair that goes across. Why not? Live it up, Crilly, with the stray strands going across like so. And different artists will go to different levels of detail. I feel like I could still use one or two more lines to sort of finish it off, but I don't want to overdo it. Don't overdo it, Crilly. A little bit of the Brooklyn guy. We haven't heard from him for a while. Yeah, what gives? You bring in Old Man Time-Lapse all the time, but you don't bring in me. And over here, I'm going to go ahead and do the same type of thing. But as you will note, that as you go across to the right-hand side, the curvature of the lines is going to go in the opposite direction to sort of reflect the shape of the scalp beneath it. And so at a certain point, you reach this kind of, it's curving off to the left, and then I always kind of find maybe one strand right here, which becomes my dead center strand in a hairstyle like this. And from that point forth, from this day hence, the lines begin to curve in the opposite direction. How do you like that? And that's going to maybe bring us toward the end of the upper reaches of the hairstyle, doing the same thing that I did over here, sort of splitting it into subsections, subdivisions, substrata. I have not seen a whole lot going on up here in terms of stray hairs, so I'm not going to draw that. I saw one or two artists adding stray hairs up there, but it didn't seem to be the predominant method of rendering his hair, so I stayed away from that. But I am going to add a few strands of hair down here by the edge of the neck. He doesn't have super long hair, but long enough that you can see. And in some illustrations, I noticed that you could see maybe a hint of his ear back there. A little hint of ear. And that brings us to the end of drawing the hair. Hey, that wasn't so painful, now was it? I think it's time now, though, to refocus the cameras, and we're going to start working on drawing one of the most defining aspects of the character, and it's this sort of neckerchief that he wears around his neck. Okay, so he does wear this sort of track suit, and I'm going to begin by putting a line right around his neck, and this one really does fit quite snugly around his neck, so that we maybe add an extra line just along the edge to show that that is clothing surrounding his neck. But now it's time to get on to drawing this neckerchief. I hope I'm using the right word there. My daughter will be correcting me later on. It's not called a neckerchief, Dad. But then we're going to go across here and create a sort of triangular-ish shape that will give us the base structure of this neckerchief. It's too late. I've started saying neckerchief. I can't stop myself now. And I'm just going to sort of do a super basic structure that goes right around, not right around, but loosely around his neck. And what I want to do, once I've got this sort of sketched out, is to erase the lines of the shoulder, so that it is not a translucent neckerchief, which would just be weird, let's be honest. But that sort of helps you get the basic structure of it in place. And then it's just a matter of adding wrinkles. Easier said than done, of course. Clothing folds and wrinkles have bedeviled art students for years. But I'm going to do this all real time and hopefully it will help you. I'm going to actually begin by adding indication here of the knot that ties it into place, and just maybe one or two quick little lines in there to make it to show wrinkles in that area. But that helps me to sort of understand where the loose final bits will come off, and it does in a lot of the illustrations I saw. It seems to come off here to the left side. His right side, our left side, just to be clear. And you can see me sort of creating an undulating surface here where these bits come in front, and then underneath you can see it wrinkling back in on itself. But in a way, you can't go wrong here. You know, it's not like this is staying the same at all times. It's going to be flopping around, and so any drawing that you make basically can be your version of it. You don't have to get too uptight about, oh, this line must go exactly in this spot, you know. And at this point, I'm going to come over here and start adding in lines that flow across toward the tip, or maybe loop across towards the other side. This line right here looks way too simple to me in terms of folds and wrinkles, so I'm going to start to break this up into subsections. My favorite word, subsections, subdivisions. And then, yeah, a lot of this is sort of improvisational. I didn't necessarily have a plan. But one thing I did notice in a lot of the illustrations is that the neckerchief has seen a lot of wear and tear over the years with his various adventures. Hope I'm getting that right. It's not the adventures that gave the wear and tear. Come on, Crilly. Read up a little more before you start doing these lessons. My daughter has talked a little bit about it. I have some idea. Nora is interesting to me. The Noragami, Nora, is interesting because of the word Nora Inu, which is for stray dog. So the title meaning literally stray god. Sort of interesting title right from the get-go. But that is typical, I think, of anime. It seems like pretty much every one of them begins with an interesting concept of some kind. They don't bother to do it if they haven't got some core interesting premise. Hence the popularity, I would say, of a lot of anime. That it's never generic, really. They've usually got some interesting hook in terms of, in this case, you know, a god who is does not have enough worshippers, is not popular enough, and that becomes a big part of his story. I think quite an interesting concept there. Linking back to, you know, Japanese traditional religious concepts. So that ends up finishing that bit. I hope I gave enough advice in terms of giving the wrinkles, folds and wrinkles. It is supposed to be a tracksuit that he's wearing, and it has these white stripes across the shoulders and heading down onto the sleeves, as many tracksuits do, as they are wont to do. And I'm going to go ahead and I thought I'd make this one sort of a little further over so it's not exactly a mirroring what we see over there. And what you're going to see me doing later on is adding quite a lot of shading, but maybe before we get to that, get some indications of the sleeves, the upper bits of the sleeves, and I think there is sort of a zipper maybe that comes across here, and then I imagine you would also see that coming all the way up here to the neck. And that is going to bring us to the end of most of the important line work that we need to do for this illustration. I'm going to pull out my trusty black Prismacolor. Gosh, it seems like a while since I've used the black Prismacolor, but this is going to be an old school acrylic video in which I do the way that I always used to do in these videos, and starting with a simple writing pencil and then kind of inking almost with a black colored pencil. Happens to be the Prismacolor company, that the brand that I'm using, but you certainly don't need to get Prismacolor. You can use any quality black colored pencil you like, if indeed you want to get this sort of darker line that I'm getting. I highly advise you to give it a try. Not so good for super detailed line work, but it really can give you greatly increased contrast and have a more finished looking drawing by the time you're done. Well, I'm going to go ahead and finish off all of this sort of line work, and then sadly probably also just move right on to doing the shading. Sorry for those of you who wanted more information on shading in this video. I can link to some of the other videos that I've done that focus more on the shading aspect. But this time we are really going to be winding it up once I get through this next stuff in time-lapse. So let's go ahead and do that, and I'll be back with a few final words. Alright, well that brings us to the end of the video. Just a few things to say. The black colored pencil, very important for drawing this character, I would say. Getting those blacks into the hair and into the jumpsuit, very important for helping us to recognize this character in terms of the color scheme. Very often I will use my eraser to put some sort of a highlight across the hair, but I decided not to. I didn't see that kind of thing going on in the illustrations I studied, and I'm not even going to add blushies this time, though my hand really wants to. No! Back! Stay away! I didn't see blushies on this character, so I am not going to add them, even though I'm sure that will disappoint some people. But I do want to say thank you to all of you who supported me by getting my books, like Brody's Ghost, my graphic novel, and the Mastering Manga Series 1, 2, and 3, manga art as well, and finally my latest book, Chibi. Very excited to show you all next Friday the interior of this book. And don't forget about my live streams next Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Look in the description of this video to get further info on that, and you can also take part in that contest that I mentioned up front at the beginning. But boy, it sure is time for me to lay down this pencil and say thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.